It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Look who I have in that digital intersection between the digital and physical world. None other than Greg Kaplan. Greg Kaplan, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great, Ray. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Well, you know, Greg is the founder and CEO of Kaplan Connect, and Kaplan Connect is the company that'll help dealers understand how to sell and navigate through the process of selling solutions to customer end users. Because, you know, we all talk about solutions. We got a whole team of solution salespeople. But at the end of the day, our whole focus is on selling a bunch of boxes. And, you know, this has been an age-old story. Some of the dealers do it well. A lot of them don't. So what do you and your team do? How are you going to help me sell more solutions? You know, Greg, what's on the menu from Kaplan Connect? I mean, what can we expect from you?
Yeah, so Ray, we've been doing this for about 20 years for all of us. And we see a lot of solutions out there. Everybody talks a good game. But at the end of the day, that solutions compose a small percentage of the overall sales of a dealership or the channel in general. And we're going to go in there and help the reps have a wider conversation because products are not solutions. Products are a vehicle to have a deeper conversation about the customer's information flow.
Well, I got to tell you, you know, I think we were talking a little earlier, but I don't know if you're aware of this, my friends in the imaging channel, but for every single dollar in solutions sold, how many dollars, this is around print-centric solutions, you know, but for every dollar around a print-centric solution sold, there's how much in hardware?
So in our analysis, Ray, so there's about $10 in hardware that gets carried along with a solution sale. And let me just define that for a minute, if I can. We look at solutions in four main categories. There's print management, printer deployment, and then capture or advanced capture. And those are clearly hardware-centric solutions, the low-hanging fruit. The other areas of solutions where we see these generally sold separate from the hardware are around content management or document management, and then security. Security is an interesting one because there's many different ways to define it. We define security as document security, network security, and device security.
Well, you know,
but
security, big buzzword.
Ratio, it's definitely.
Yeah, that big security buzzword that everybody's trying to figure out how to sell solutions around security, and especially around document security in our industry. But that's still a big number when you think about it. Every dollar in services, I'm going to get $10 worth of hardware. So I hit my hardware gain. So I just got to figure out how to do this. Where are we going wrong? Because it seems to me that we're still way off in percentages of revenue in what we're doing in solution sales. You know, so after 5, 6, 10 years, I mean, where's our industry really failing at this? Because for the most part, we're not knocking it out of the park with solutions.
No, we're not. Even some of the healthiest dealers that sell a lot of solutions, it's still overall a very small percentage of their business, even when you add in services. You know, I think the problem is where we are today. Solutions are not new in the industry. And so dealers have sold them to various levels of success, and there's been a lot of issues. And so some of those issues are perception. The rep says, well, it's going to extend my sales cycle. The dealership might say, well, that's complicated. That means I have to hire extra people, and I'm not sure that there's an ROI. The cost-benefit analysis may not make sense to them. In other cases, solutions were sold, the rep sold it, the customer had a different expectation of what the solution would do, and then the software vendor comes in and says, oh, yeah, we can do that, but that's going to be 4 or 5 days of professional services, which were not included in the quote.
There goes all the profit. Interesting. So how much of that happens out in the marketplace? I mean, where people go in with a solution, because I've seen it once or twice. You know, they go in with a solution, they price the professional services to implement it, but they just miscalculate the timing that it takes them to implement it. And lo and behold, they're calling in the vendor for support, and that's not cheap to do that. So do we see that a lot in the market today?
It happens more than it should, and part of the reason is that when you're going in to do an implementation, that's typically custom, right? So it's not in the price book. It's in the price book in terms of dollars per hour, but nobody knows how many hours that'll be. So there's a lot of back and forth, and even if it's clean to the customer, there's still a lot of friction between vendor and dealer.
Let me ask you, do you and your team have some statistics that you could help a dealership out really understanding what it takes to implement some of this stuff? I mean, if we look at the hardware, we know how long it takes to do a PM as an example. We know how long these services take. So if we look at the solution side of the fence, is there any data out there that helps us determine, hey, if I deploy, XYZ implementation, it's going to take me this many hours based on maybe the human capital that's inside the organization that we're selling, or however we determine that. But is there any of that science out there?
There is, but I want to be upfront about it. It's still going to be unique somewhat to the customer. When our team, we have folks that have designed professional services methodologies and programs for vendors and dealers so that they have a really good idea of the range, because sometimes a customer wants, what's a ballpark? Is this 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, right? So we can bring it to the ballpark and then sharpen our pencil when we have the discovery call with the customer. So we've designed those professional service methodologies.
Let me ask you a question, because this is what I see happening. So you go out there, you present the solution, you price the solution. Maybe the customer, we're getting a little price sensitive, so we got to reduce our pricing. That reduction seems to always come out of the professional services side. You know what's going to cost you from the software manufacturer, so you know all your fixed cost. You've priced it with the best science you could from a professional services standpoint, but then you end up taking the money off of that. I mean, and I know we see a lot of that out there, but is that something your team can really kind of help us understand, that, hey, that's the price you need to be regardless, because if you go any lower than that, you're not going to make any money?
Yeah, for sure. And some of the folks on our team represented the vendor on the professional services side and had to eat some of those costs. So we definitely know the conversation and the questions to ask. I think a lot of it is really about how the solution or product is pitched or positioned inside the customer. So it's important to have the discovery call and to do it correctly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say, so let me ask you, most of these software solution providers, the people that are providing the solutions to the dealer to sell, they seem like they're all pretty reputable companies. I don't think they're out there trying to mislead dealers in any way or not. But are they probably assuming that the dealer has all the right certifications, that they have the right knowledge? I mean, they're not basing an install on any mishaps that dealer might have, and that's kind of where you would come in and say, look, if everything was perfect, you could do it in that time frame, but you're not perfect by any means, so we need to adjust the cost at this level. Because to me, that's where we miss the boat, and I said we see that a lot in IT services too. We think we can do something, or maybe the provider thinks that we should be able to do it, so we just price it at what we should be able to do it at, and what our actual abilities are is a whole different dollar amount. I mean, but is that something you could really help us with? Because to me, that's a need in the market.
I agree with that, Ray. And part of the challenge is that there's this perception out there that the vendor, the software vendor reps cover a geography. And so they're also supporting that dealership's competitors down the street. So a lot of times there's a reluctance or hesitation to bring in the vendor to really scope that out. So we are vendor agnostic. We don't represent any particular product where we don't have a horse in that race, right? We're trying to do what's right for the customer and the partner so that the solution is implemented correctly. So that's where I think some of the challenge is. And I would say that the vendors don't want to, the perception is from the dealership that the vendors support their competitors or they're going to take business direct. Anybody who's been in the channel long enough knows that the quickest way to kill a channel business is to take a deal direct or have the perception that you're supporting a competitor. Vendors don't want to do that. They want to grow their channel business.
Sure.
But it's out there. So as a vendor agnostic entity, we'll come in and work with the dealership as if we represent the dealership, have those discussions, do the proper discovery, and then step back and consult with the dealership on what's the best solution, who should do the implementation, how it should be done, what type of paperwork and contracts need to be put in place.
Well, I mean, that's all good stuff, and I'm sure you're going to have a busy time ahead of you because this is a big opportunity for our industry. And we're going on the other side of the bell curve. We all know that. We all know print's declining, and we have to look deeper into those organizations that we service and come up with more solutions to sell. And more solutions will come to the table. And I agree with you. You know, these solution providers, the manufacturers of these solutions, they're not going to go direct. You know, but what they will do is steer away from those immature dealers that aren't delivering at the customer's expectations. I mean, they're not going to give you too many chances to screw things up before they're going to look to the next player in the market space. I mean, we all know that. So, hey, you know what, Greg? Hey, I really appreciate having you on. I want to have you on again one day. You know, I would say that, you know, going forward in 2020, solution selling can't be just a word. Get a hold of my friend Greg Kaplan because he can help you out, him and his team. And, you know, Greg, I'm going to end this like I always do. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo. We'll see you all tomorrow. And, Greg, have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Ray. You too.
All right, buddy. Take care, my friends.